Okay, welcome everyone to the first OLA Town Hall. So this is a partnership between OKSL, PLD, and UCD. So we are going to each introduce ourselves and talk about what the goals of this town hall are. I encourage you to post your questions in the chat box, and we will call on you and unmute you if you have a question and allow you to speak. But we are going to archive the chat so that you can go through it later. So don't panic trying to take screenshots or write things down. That you will have access to a recording of the video and to the chat transcript. So there are three moderators. So I'm Amanda Kordelsky. I am the current chair of Oklahoma School Libraries. And in my day job, I am a school librarian at Norman North High School in Norman. So we'll go T-Wolves.
I am Kelly Sitzman. I am the current chair of the Public Libraries Division, and I am a branch manager with the Pioneer Library System at Norman Public Library East. And I wish we had a mascot, but I'll work on that. Go East.
I'm Philip Fitzsimmons. I'm the current chair of the UCD, and I am the reference and digitization librarian at Southwestern Oklahoma State University.
And I've been watching the chat, and it looks like we have a broad mix of librarians from all across the state and every branch. So our goal today is to really talk about ways that we can collaborate and work together in this really stressful time. And then looking forward at what our practice is looking like for the summer during summer learning and then into the academic year when we start in the fall. So to ask a question, if you would type the word question and then put your question in the chat, make sure that you have selected to send it to everyone. And then when we call on you to speak, Kelly will unmute your microphone and we'll give you a little bit of a lag time. Sometimes you get a pop-up that asks, you know, the host is asking you to unmute your mic, and so you'll have to hit the unmute button as well before you can start to speak. But we won't skip you. We'll give everybody a little bit of time before we get used to this. This is our very first town hall, so we are looking for all kinds of feedback, what we can do better, what you liked, if you're interested in doing this again, what topics can we address next time. We do have a resource page that we have built that I will drop the link in the chat, and I also have a bit.ly up on the last slide that you can take a screenshot of, and we will share that have a lot of resources that have answer some questions that have popped up in other town halls that we have participated in to make sure that everyone has all of those ready resources. And then those will also be posted on the OLA website with the chat, video, and transcript.
And we also have an evaluation that we would love for you all to fill out, and that I think is already dropped in the chat, and we'll continue to refer to that. And we will make that as easy as possible for you to fill out, but we would love your feedback on today's session and future sessions so that we can kind of craft this to better fit your needs. So we have some overall goals. When Amanda and Philip and I were meeting about topics for our town hall, we really realized that we're all in this together, even though we may be serving different types of customers or learners. We have students, faculty, we're working with the public, but across the board, we have shared goals. We want to serve our customers, whatever those customers look like, with the best library services we can in this uncertain time and reach as many people as possible. So I want you all to think outside the box today and think broadly across libraries across Oklahoma. And even though something may be specific to public or school or university setting, it's all applicable. So put on your thinking caps today and be thinking about how what we're talking about today can relate to you and your role and in your larger library community. We have resources, as Amanda mentioned. So this goal is to get us all in the same room and be sharing those resources. We are hoping that today you can meet people. The reason we wanted you to introduce yourself in the chat was so that you can look back and see all the different people that were here. And so if you are stuck in a problem, you can look back and see who all is there to support you in your area. And you can connect with other librarians and establish those relationships in your area or across the state to accomplish shared goals. And then finally, just to share best practices. We're all, like I said, in this together. We're all trying to figure out what our new normal looks like. And the stronger, we're stronger together. And the more we work together, the easier this will be. So this is just the first step in kind of building that shared resource, partnership, and best practices across OLA and across Oklahoma libraries.
Okay, so to build on what Kelly said, that our goal is to create a collaboration across all types of libraries and just share ideas. We know that some people are a little farther along in their experience with digital learning or what that looks like. And we are looking at some really great successes that people would be willing to share out, or tiny successes. And the same thing with failures. I tried this and it didn't work, or I tried this and I think I can make it work later. So what we would love for you guys to do now is to share some of your successful collaborations you've had, whether it's with a library similar to yours, or you've created a partnership between a school and an academic library, or a school and the public, or an academic and public library. What have you done, not necessarily in the time of COVID, but what collaborations have you had that have been successful outside of your library? And I'll give you just a couple of minutes to type in the chat or to indicate that you would like to share. You are welcome to just type in the chat if you don't want to speak, but if you want to speak, please type the word question and then we'd love to hear from you. I'm going to keep talking a little bit because I don't want dead air. But I will say, Kelly and I have the benefit of being in the same town. So I'm at the high school, one of the high schools in Norman, and Kelly is a branch manager for Pioneer, but here in Norman. And so we have done several different collaborations just throughout the school year. Most recently, we collaborated on a reading challenge for our students. We created bingo cards to get them to read outside their comfort zone, and met with Kelly and several other librarians from Pioneer to coordinate having us appear on their Beanstack to get our students to participate in their winter challenge. And to sign up for some activities and learning resources outside of our scope at the school, and to get them involved in the public library as well. And I felt like it was a really successful first go round for doing a digital thing. We had kids signing up and participating for some activities at Norman Central and Norman East that they had never done that before.
Hi, I'll jump in here so that the other two don't have to do all of the talking. So I am out here on the plains in Weatherford, Oklahoma. That's a little bit different, and I'm a university librarian. So we are working to continue to provide as many of the same services digitally that we normally would have. And then my other part of my job is as digitization. And so we are able to continue to work on migrating things from our old website to the upcoming new one digitally, and continuing to work on various projects. So we're able to continue to work, but it is different, and we have to make sure that we have ways that people can contact us through chat and email and being available on the phone. And we're continuing with our usual reference shifts. So I'm sure that that is what everybody else is doing, but I'm jumping in here so that the other two don't have to do all the talking.
I see some really great partnerships and relationships in the chat. Especially, I took note of Kristen. It looked like you said OCU and Metro have partnered for the university and public partnership. That's awesome to see too. Amanda, do you want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned going to OU and getting library cards and instruction there. Do you want to share a little bit about what you've done with OU?
Yeah, so Norman Public Schools has a really great partnership with the University of Oklahoma, and at the high school level, it's something that we have really taken advantage of with our students who are researchers and are taking challenging classes where they need maybe more database instruction than the databases that we have access to at school. And so every year we, the classroom teacher and I set up appointments with some of the instruction librarians at OU at Bazell Memorial Library, and take our students to Bazell, and we get to hang out in the new Learning Commons in the bottom, which if you haven't been there, it's really incredible. But they have an opportunity to interact with an academic librarian, and the librarian walks them through how they use the resources that are available to them at OU. And then they get an OU library card and learn how to pull resources from an academic library, request things through interlibrary loan, and really just become comfortable with the idea of research at the collegiate level, and knowing that librarians, no matter which building you are always there to help, and who to go to when you don't know something, no matter which campus you're on. So it has been a really beneficial partnership for us. We're looking at having it be a little bit different in the fall if we end up being virtual, because right now our kids have database access when they're at OU and they can check out books, but they don't have virtual database access yet. So we have kind of brainstormed this little stop gap from March to May. The school librarians we've been pulling and getting resources for them through through my alumni account, but we hope to go back to them being able to access and find their own and not have to be physically in the library next year. So it's been a really great collaboration, and try to bridge that gap between K-12 and higher ed, and make sure that our kids have the skills and the knowledge that they need moving into to higher ed.
I saw in the chat that Bailey, you mentioned a story walk. Do you mind if I unmute you and you can tell us a little more about story walks? I know that's something that's pretty popular right now, and especially given the current circumstances of not encouraging gathering, but encouraging getting out and walking around. I know that's a hot topic, so I'm going to put you on the spot if you're okay with that.
Okay, yeah, we're really excited. It kind of got put on hold due to COVID and what's happening, but our VOTEC they are making our Storywalk stands. The students are, so we're working on how to finish that because we were about halfway through the process, and Rotary has decided to make that their project for the year. So they are basically paying the chunk in order to get the supplies, and then we have a local person who's paying to paint them and put the plexiglass or what we're covering with it. And then the city is doing all the labor, and then the library, our employees will be changing out the books and stuff. But we hope to have that installed by mid-June and have it finished. And so hopefully that will promote everybody getting out, walking, still maintaining social distancing. It didn't happen quite as quick as we would like for it to, but it's been an awesome opportunity just to collaborate with everybody in the community. And it's kind of, we've grabbed different people as we've gone along the way, and people are getting excited about it. And so that's kind of where we're at with it right now.
That's awesome. I love the multi-collaboration with multiple different groups in your community. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
And a question that I received through email, is Elaine here? Is our libraries doing anything to disinfect books as they are returned? Is it enough to quarantine the books for 14 days? So Elaine, if you'd like to say what you've done, or if there's anybody else who has some answers on that question that does keep coming up.
I see in the chat, Bailey says quarantining for 72 hours. On behalf of Pioneer, I know that's our plan, is to set materials aside for 72 hours to disinfect. Just naturally, I think, is letting that. Okay, looks like a lot are saying 72 hours. That seems to be the best practice. Someone has a procedure written and we'll go grab that and share that. Thank you to everyone for sharing that. And it's always good to see that everyone's kind of on the same page. That's always a nice feeling.
From Hennessy, we've got, we disinfect immediately and then shelve because we're curbside only.
And in our resources document as well, there are some links to some of those best practices too, from ALA and from, CDC and some of those overarching entities that are the experts in this. So that is something that if you're looking for more information on that topic, thanks Amanda for dropping that in the chat. Anyone else have any successful collaborations? Okay, we're moving on. Good call, Amanda.
Okay, so let's talk about some platforms that you have used. It can be some intense information overload with options on what platforms that you choose to reach out to your distance learners and really be able to have a lot of engagement. So which platforms have you found to be successful? Do you have one that you love or one that you really wanted to love, but you can't get your patrons engaged in a particular platform? We would love to hear all of your ideas, and anything that's dropped in the chat, I will also be adding to our resource page. So any tools or tickets that we talk about. I'm going to start off while I give everybody some time to think about the platforms that they love. At one of the very first AASL town halls, we talked about being able to chat and assist learners in real time, and an app or a platform that a librarian talked about is called Talk.to, and it's TAWK, like squawk, and its little emblem is a parrot. It's super cute, but it is really easy to embed into your library webpage, and you can list out the hours that you're available or what your office hours are. And it tracks traffic going through your site, so you can see how many people are visiting your webpage and then interacting with your webpage. But they can also, it will give you an alert if anybody fills out the chat box, and you can troubleshoot and chat with them in real time. So that is something that I really like at the high school level, we have it on our page and it goes live every morning for several hours and will notify me on whichever device I happen to be on. So I'm not just married to my laptop always, but then I always have the option too of setting up if I need it to do a face-to-face consultation because they are struggling with something I can't just answer in text. So it has been a really great tool that we have used at Norman North. It's free, and from the back end, I know we always talk about how much data tools that are being offered for free right now are gathering on our learners, and it does not require any registration at all for anybody who wants to ask a question to the librarian. So that would be safe even for those under 13, because they don't have to put any information at all other than their question into the chat box. What else? Kelly, do you see anything in the chat that has been real successful?
Yeah, it looks like Stacy Ford, do you want to share a little bit about StreamYard? It sounds like you have some experience with that and can give a little more info. I'm going to unmute you if that's okay. I always ask just in case like you're multitasking and like washing dishes or something, just in case.
Thanks. No, I've been using StreamYard just and mainly streaming to Facebook Live, but the advantage that I find that it has is that I can bring guests in to the broadcast studio, is what they call it, pretty easily. So it's easy to have more than one person there, and you can share your screen. So like I've been reading lots of ebooks on that platform because I'm an elementary school librarian, and so that's what I've been using. And I use the free version, but I think the fee is like $20, and then you can have up to 10 people, and it takes away their watermark and gives you, and you can stream to more than one place. So it streams, I know, to Facebook and YouTube. Like you can choose like what destination you want to stream to. So it's pretty easy and user friendly. And like when I invite guests, you just copy a link and send it to everyone, and they don't have to log in. It's just really seamless. And so I've enjoyed using it, and I think it's pretty useful for the things that I'm kind of doing right now.
Awesome. Thanks. Molly, I see you mentioned Instagram, and I have heard from multiple people that your Insta game is strong. Do you want to share a little bit more about what you found that's successful and what types of posts maybe get more interaction than others? Any tips you want to share with our group?
Sure. So definitely the most popular posts are the us focused or our dog focused. Like we've taken a lot of pictures of our dogs with books, and we did like spine poetry with our dogs. I know Amanda's dog has to be bribed with Cheez-Its, and then my dog just probably like she just pouts afterwards. But those have definitely been really popular. Anything like promoting a specific book that it's kind of cool. Like when I posted about some books, and then I kind of check our Sora, our ebook catalog, and see like, oh, it checked out. Even though I mean it could have been because of anything, but I'm gonna say it's because I posted about it. So just like being consistent and posting at least once a day. You don't want to overwhelm everybody, but I mean, everyone's at home on their phones a lot. So just being consistent and just being present and just making it fun. So like not just always doing like ebooks, but just being fun. Like I did just a book post yesterday with like my neighbor's flowers. So of course there's only so many pictures you can take in your home, but just making it fun and just really working on that digital photography.
Thanks. Yeah, I've heard great things from people around Norman of, man, they have great stuff. And Norman High too. I got to give love to both the Norman High schools. Bailey, I saw you had a question. I'm going to unmute you so you can elaborate a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, I've noticed that people are using Zoom a lot for programming, like Storytime or Teen Hangouts. We've only experienced with just Facebook Live or videos, and I'm curious how well that's working for others who are using that. Are you getting a lot of interaction? Like, are people asking to join? Are they showing up? Does that seem to be, I guess, more consistent than just posting a video on your Facebook page or YouTube channel? So that was really it.
I see that Jackie responded that they've had success. Jackie, let me find you on here and I'll unmute you. There you go.
Thanks, Kelly. Hey, Bailey, it's Jackie at Western Plains. I was just going to say so far we've done book clubs really successfully through Zoom. I think the biggest challenge is to figure out how to get over the lack of social cues when people are ready to speak, because they're a lot more subtle than they are, or they're more subtle when you do it digitally. People don't always pick up on those. When we're sitting in a meeting, you'll look at somebody and you'll head nod, and then that'll give them the cue to speak. That kind of stuff doesn't exist anymore. So you have to be very intentional about how people should let you know when they're talking and that kind of thing, and making sure that your connection is good, because we have a lot of people in our area who are very rural, and so we encourage them to use their computer instead of their cell phone for Zoom, and that's been very helpful. I mean, that's pretty basic, but it's gone well for us. We're going to try Pokemon Card Club here in about a week, so we'll see how it works with younger audiences.
So has anybody had a concern about people that they're serving not having sufficient computer or phone service so that they can take advantage of the of your services? Because after all, this wasn't planned, and not everybody does have the bandwidth and computers or phones that most of us take for granted.
I know that for PLD, we've spent a lot of time talking about that issue of that digital divide and how do we close that, and what creative ways can we get out there to serve those customers, and whether that's loaning hotspots, or if you have, like, for example, Pioneer has our Maker Mobile, or if you had a bookmobile that has Wi-Fi access, driving that out into maybe communities that don't have Wi-Fi access. And certainly there have been some hiccups there as well along the way of, not encouraging gatherings. So if you do have a mobile hotspot set up somewhere, how do you keep people from staying 6 feet apart, and those kinds of considerations. Anybody else from those meetings? Refresh my memory what other solutions we had. ODL also, that's a big concern of theirs and something that's on their radar as well.
So I will do just a little bit of a plug that this week is National Library Legislative Day, and we're doing it virtually. And in the resource page, there are links to the ALA resources for talking points for your state and federal legislators about virtual National Library Legislative Day, but a huge topic that has really bubbled to the top, even outside of libraries, is the impact of not having access, broadband access and internet access, or enough devices in the home. So if this is something that you feel that your patrons are struggling with, or that being able to suddenly access a hotspot or Wi-Fi has been a game changer in your library, I encourage you to write that story down and share it with your legislators to make sure that they understand what a game changer and equity piece that internet access for all is. And then there's some data and talking points on that on the ALA site as well. But all of those links are in our resources page, so that you guys can easily click. It has one thing each day that it recommends that takes less than 15 minutes to be an advocate for libraries. But that equity piece and broadband and internet for all is something that is really huge this year.
Absolutely. And also in those resources, at least on the PLD page. If you are not familiar with E-rate as well, if you haven't applied for that, you should talk with the OUSF and the Public Utilities Division and definitely apply, because that will help you get better internet at a reasonable price.
And then Kelly, I see that Brent has said that they were able to help some of their stakeholders with hardware and assistance. Maybe we can unmute Brent and have him talk about how he was successful in doing that.
Hello,
There.
can you hear me? Okay, good. Well, so I had no part in this, to be perfectly honest. It was our LTS team, our tech team. And through assistance of the broader law school, some funds were appropriated to get laptops, to provide support to faculty who needed assistance setting up classes. Some of us librarians have assisted with those, monitoring Zoom courses and stuff like that and helping them transition. So nothing I personally did in terms of access and hardware, but the school itself has been able to help with that. But it's limited. I mean, we can't do it forever and for everyone.
That's awesome. That also reminds me, for those of you that have received an health literacy grant from the Oklahoma Department of Libraries and IMLS, there was a meeting, and Leslie Gelders, the contact for that, was sharing an example of how you could spend those funds in terms of purchasing iPads or technology to lend out, if you will, to senior centers or other places where people are experiencing isolation and may not have connectivity. So purchasing some of that hardware to connect people. And I really loved that idea. And I know many of you were on that call and can share more, but just a small idea to get your brain thinking in that direction too.
And I'm going to say Brent gave us a really great segue into our next discussion topic, which is that, I mean, we haven't had a lot of study about how librarians, all types of librarians, successfully bring their practice into the virtual world. So some have more experience than others. And I know there are a lot of librarians who are already experienced dropping into Zoom meetings or being co-library or co-teachers on learning management systems in that platform. So this is a point where we would love those who have experience with that to share what's worked well with them or how to approach a teacher or a professor or a fellow librarian about collaborating in the digital space. We're really looking for some great best practices that we can all use to enhance our library game. So I love seeing that T-Mobile has some technology grants available. Enid School's got one to purchase hotspots. Purchasing iPads and antimicrobial cases for nursing home residents. That is such a game changer. I have such empathy for those that haven't been allowed to have any visitors for the longest amount of time. So I mean, what a great idea with that.
Bailey's got a question about purchasing an iPad maybe for filming instead of just using an iPhone. Does anybody have any experience on that? Oh, Jackie says better quality videos on her phone than her iPad. Interesting.
Oh, so Charity has posted, are you calling it Charity too? How about her elementary librarians dropping in with Zoom? Charity, would you be willing to talk about that for just a bit?
Sure. So I've been really proud of our district because our school librarians have been involved in the whole distance learning planning process from the beginning. So at the beginning, we started with choice boards that we're handing out each week, both online, and then we also pass them out on our meal delivery routes for those who don't have connectivity. But each choice board was designed by a committee, and we had a school librarian on each committee to make sure that we were giving our kids the resources they needed on those choice boards. But then now that a lot of our teachers are doing Zoom calls with their kids, mainly just to check in with them and make sure that they're doing okay, they have been great to have our school librarians join them on those so that our kids are still seeing our librarians. And our librarians have made a lot of videos just reading to the kids. One of our elementary librarians has like a daily video that she does with like a learning challenge. So I've been just really impressed with the way that they have provided support, not just to learners, but also to the classroom teachers.
That sounds fantastic. So I just dropped the bit.ly link into the chat again, and again it will also be at the end of our town hall. But there is a link to some examples of choice boards, the ones that Shawnee has built with their librarians, and then also some examples from Norman. My current choice board that I am obsessed with as an adult learner is from the Smithsonian. They are putting together choice boards every week that pull resources from all across, from the National Archives and Library of Congress to the many museums that Smithsonian runs, and they have a different category. They have a science and arts and culture and all different activities, and it has a handy little key that tells you what age that it's appropriate for, and if you need technology, if it's hands-on, if you're going outside, and you can go back and look at all of the ones that they have built. So they have a catalog of them now, but they post a new one every week, and for multiple learners. They do a choice board for like K-8, and then they do a tweens and teens, and then an adult learner one as well. And they are fantastic. You can go, I went down a National Zoo rabbit hole last week with one of their options on the choice board, but it really gives you the opportunity to explore all different kinds of things and use some resources that you might not normally have jumped on or used.
I see.
And I'd like to draw attention to Natalie Curie's comment about ODL survey released today on digital inclusion. Natalie, would you like to say something about that?
Hey everybody, I'm lurking in the background here. Yeah, ODL is partnering with our friends in the museum world and the tribal library world because IMLS has allotted Oklahoma a little over $300,000, and they specifically want us to spend it towards digital inclusion initiatives. And they really want us to focus on selecting targets based on SNAP data and workforce development data and that sort of thing. So this survey that I shared in the link, if you guys would all participate, that's just going to help us narrow down a focus for how we can use these funds. And then hopefully within the next couple of weeks, you guys will see more information on how you can apply to to use these funds to move the needle on digital inclusion.
Thanks, Natalie. Thanks for sharing that.
I'm going to emphasize Bob Holtzman did make his document available and with a Dropbox link. So I wanted to draw people's attention to that.
Okay, so our next topic, which I think that we may have a lot of suggestions and ideas for. You know, usually about this time of the school year, you have a lot of public librarians reaching out and promoting summer learning to students in the schools, and you see ideas on how to get learners into the library in the summer and really stop that learning, that backward slide that we sometimes see in the summer. So we're looking for ideas on how to stop that and to collaborate digitally. I know summer learning is going to look a little bit different this year, and I'll let the public librarians take the lead on kind of what they are doing in that direction. But I would also love to hear ideas about how school librarians can connect their learners to resources that'll be available to them in the summertime, and then what that looks like going forward. So Kelly, do you want to talk about summer learning for a bit?
Well, sure. I will kick us off, and then I know there are a lot of public librarians that probably know more than I do. So I just know that for Pioneer, like Amanda said, we are spending our last 2 months of the school year really promoting that summer learning program. And this year, we don't have those schools to physically walk into and share. So we have really been pushing that online aspect. Our summer learning program is continuing. It is online only. So we have the Beanstack. The Beanstack is our platform that we work with. And so that fortunately, we already have that built in. And so we're moving toward digital programming for our system-wide programs that usually would tour around. They'll be online this year. And then people can still log their learning activities digitally. We have also shared some paper reading logs that will go out in some local newspapers so that those that don't have connectivity or are not able to log into Beanstack can still log their reading on the paper log, which is an exciting, I think, way to support our local newspapers and also reach out to those that may not have that connectivity. But I know it's just a kind of tiny shift, and yet it's a huge shift all at once. So we are navigating as best we can, but I will open the floor to any other public librarians to talk about kind of what you're doing and how we can support others and others can support us. And if you'd like to speak, I think you can unmute yourself. I think I just enabled that, so you should be able to unmute yourself and speak, or you can let me know and I'll unmute you. Kitty, I noticed that you say you're sending out info through Google Classroom. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, I can do that. So Enid Public Schools are one-to-one. And so I created a Google Classroom, and I had to actually go through the IT department because Enid is not a G Suite organization. So I went through Enid Public Schools, created a Google Classroom, and then I just started using all my resources. So all my librarian friends, all my former teacher friends from anywhere in Garfield County. And I put it out on Facebook in some homeschooling groups, and they went through and they've added. So I'm currently up to almost 50 teens in the last 2.5 weeks. So we do Zooms multiple times a week, but it's great because then I can post anything that I want to do program wise. I'm getting their ideas and their feedback. So it's actually been a great resource because we all know that teens are not on Facebook. So it's been a great avenue so far. And our librarians have been really great to help push out any information that we send to them because they also use Google Classroom with their students.
That's awesome. Thank you. I noticed too that Bailey mentioned they're handing out summer reading bags and packets at food stops. That's another great avenue to share information with a large variety of people. Charity mentions it helps when you have a librarian who manages district communication. So if you're able to swing that, sounds like that's a great avenue. I think one other thing to highlight is don't underestimate the power of your staff's networks as well. In our branch, when we started talking about how can we get the word out about summer learning, we realized how plugged in our staff are in their personal lives, in their church groups, in their recreational activity groups, their children's recreational groups. And then professional groups, you know, if you are involved in Rotary or the Chamber or any of those community organizations too, sometimes that word of mouth is just as powerful as that official marketing. So I would definitely pull upon the strengths and the networks of your individual teams to get the word out and to reach out to public libraries. If you're not in a public library and no one has reached out to you yet, that's a great time to contact them and say, hey, we'd love more info and we'd love to spread the word for you.
So Kelly, for those who don't have a public library connection right now, who do you recommend when they pull up their public library website? Who do you recommend that they choose to reach out to first?
Everyone. I'm just kidding. That's a great question. I mean, I think I can't speak for everyone in the state and knowing what that looks like, but and sometimes picking up the phone and calling too. Sometimes those calls can make a bigger difference too if we're busy, and especially as we're all in this transition of reopening our buildings or trying to figure out what that looks like. You know, email may not be the best response, but just calling and saying, hey, I would love to speak with whoever runs that program. So I don't know, that's coming from an extrovert who's like, I'll ask anybody anything, but I don't, I mean, I really would say just, you know, find whatever contact info, start with that. If there's not a clear, you know, contact us kind of button, or, you know, learn more about summer reading here, just reach out to anybody on that site and say, hey, get us more info. And then you'll probably be bombarded with information for the rest of your life. So just kidding. We just love to share stuff with you guys.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to our last question, and then we're going to open it up to just general Q&A. But something that it's come up, I sent out a survey to OKSL members asking about topics that we needed to address in this town hall. And this is one that was mentioned several times. How can all libraries combat racism and discrimination specific to Asian Americans that has become apparent or increased since COVID-19? So there are some really great resources from the Asian American Pacific Islander Library ALA group. There's a statement and then a really incredible resource list from K-12 for K-12 librarians that is posted in our resource page. But I would love to hear ideas that others have or things that you intend to do to kind of bring positive role models and highlight those Asian Americans in our collections and our activities that we're doing over the summer.
I think for public libraries too, maybe making sure your collection reflects those authors too, making sure you have a robust collection of that features diverse authors and characters. That's your first step, for me at least.
I'm going to put my co-librarian on the spot here and call on her. So Molly, can you talk a little bit about the Sora collection that you're curating and the social media plans that you intend to do to highlight those books and authors for North?
It gave me like, do you want to unmute? I don't know. Yeah, so one is just like kind of doing the research. So I went to the webinar that the APA ALA offered, and one of the big resources, like half of the webinar was just books and new things that are being published and things to be aware of. So like anything that we've bought, put that in a collection just to really highlight those. And I mean, really any collection we build as school library, in our school library ebook system, just try to be very aware of putting in diverse titles. Like if we do book talks, if we do videos or anything, like making sure like, oh, I mean, have we done any diverse titles? Like we do Best Beginnings, where we read a little excerpt from the beginning of a book. And so like my first one I did was The Epic Crush of Jeannie Lowe, because one, it's an amazing book, it's awesome and funny, but also because that has an Asian American protagonist, it's a fun fantasy. The webinar really stressed that like if your collection just has books that are like stories about celebrities and immigration stories, that's not enough. That and really even for like all sorts of groups, everyone has fun stories to tell. They have really amazing stories to tell. And so if you just have like the hard stuff, the sad stuff, then your kids and your patrons are only seeing them reflected in that way, and that's sad. So just really just staying on top of collection development and cool new titles and things coming out, and also being aware. Like I know I've seen on Twitter some library systems that have just like kind of thrown together some like Asian Pacific American month collections, but then they put in titles with characters that don't identify that with those cultures, and they're just so it looks like really bad. And so don't do that. Like do your research, make sure. I know in Sora and in Libby, the search terms are pretty easy. Like you have to kind of go out of your way to put in a book that doesn't fit that criteria. So, but just like be very aware, and really you can always like look up the author and look up the characters and find out if they fit that kind of cultural criteria. If you're really trying to highlight a specific culture, just be very aware.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, so here is the link to our resource page. If you have not grabbed it out of the chat already, I hope that as we look back today, we're going to open the floor just to any questions about anything or concerns or struggles that you're having right now. We would love to hear from you. Our hope today is that you had the opportunity to build some new connections and to kind of been rejuvenated and refreshed, and share what you've learned and learn from someone else, and then maybe walk away with a new tool or two to try in your library. So fire away with the questions. And Kelly did say she gave everyone has the option to unmute themselves right now. So as long as everybody doesn't hit the unmute button at first or at the same time, just feel free to go ahead and speak.
Did we answer all of your questions? Surely not. Surely you are going to be thinking about these things. We are going to have an ever-changing environment as we move forward. So this is not the end all be all, of course. And this is where you can reach us. We are your division chairs currently for OLA. So don't hesitate to contact one of us if you have questions, if you have suggestions or tools, or you thought of something after you left this town hall today and want to share. We can get this sent out to our respective divisions and through the OLA membership. I see one question of how people are feeling about going back to physical spaces. That's a great question.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, I muted instead of unmuted. I can only speak to myself and say that I have a lot of anxiety about going back to a public space right now and interacting with people that are out of my control. And so if you are anxious about that, I completely feel you that I'm right there with you. So I personally am going to be staying home a little bit longer because it is really overwhelming, the idea to go out right now. So does anybody else have any tips on dealing with that anxiety or a different approach or outlook?
So SWOSU has been sending out emails about the plan is to start opening it up in the fall. And they're doing things like seeing what are the largest classrooms and going very carefully, making sure that both accommodation and health safety are the two things that are being emphasized. And it's really going to be different for what kind of a institution and where you even are, because for instance, in Norman and Oklahoma City, where there have been the most deaths and more cases, you're going to feel quite differently than say out here in Custer County, where we've had 10 cases so far. And so it's really going to be different for each of us.
I also, just speaking from what we've been working toward, is the more you can prepare, the better I feel. We did go back to the branches. We're working once every 3 days in the branch. And once I was in the space, which is weird, you'd think it'd be opposite, but I felt so much better in terms of we have control over our environments and, you know, at least in my branch, of moving things where we need to go, where it needs to go for social distancing measures, and just being prepared. It's the same, I'm thinking of it as the same as like tornado season or severe weather season. If, you know, prepare yourself and get the tools that you need, and you know, create your personal plan and the plan for what you have control over. And I know that just helped me a little bit. I think everybody is anxious about this new world. So that just helped me personally, of having a plan in place and gathering the materials you need, and just kind of being in that space to assess, okay, how can we make this work? And it was much less daunting once we got there and we could see our space and say, okay, this is how we're envisioning services going that first month or so. There are some other great conversations going on in the chat. In the interest of time, I want to do a little housekeeping. Please do fill out an evaluation for this town hall. Like we said, this is our first go round with this, and we hope to have more. Ballots have gone out for OLA elections, and you should receive those if you are a current OLA member, and you can check your member profile on the OLA website if you did not get those, to make sure your email is up to date. Please attend the Q&A for the proposed constitution and bylaws on Monday, May 11th from 2:30 to 3:30. Some Zoom information will be coming out through the OLA newsletter soon, and we would love to have a great turnout for that, to kind of address any questions or concerns you have about those proposed changes. We will be sending out a recording. This has been recording the whole time. Surprise. So we'll be sending out the recording, this chat, and our resource page is embedded in this presentation as well. So all of this will be sent to the 3 divisions, and we'll see if we can get that out through the OLA newsletter as well. But thank you guys all for attending. I was so excited to see a great turnout, and thanks to our co-hosts.
It has been a great turnout. So thank you for attending, and we hope to do this again sometime soon.
Thank you, everyone.